Welcome to session 3 of project management. In this session we're going to look at the roots of project management and where our modern ideas on how to manage a project started.
Session 3, Project Management. In this session we will delve a little more deeply into the nature of project working. Now, if there's one single quality which sets a project apart from routine operational work, it is its novelty. No two projects are exactly alike, and the course of any project can never be predicted with complete accuracy. Projects tend to be journeys into the unknown, and they often have a number of risks attached to them. Projects often use resources which are scarce or expensive or both, and which have to be deployed over a complex framework of tasks. The purpose of project management is to contain, minimize and counter the associated risks of new work and to organize activity and resources so that the project is finished on time, within budget and with the specification objectives achieved. As we've already mentioned, projects may be of a wide variety of types, including manufacturing, construction, change management, research, or the creation of a comprehensive report, just to name a few. Slide 2, the quality cost time triangle. We've already identified that projects usually have three main areas of objectives for which we use the shortcut of quality, cost and time. And we can expand these as follows. The first issue of quality may be expanded to relate to issues about function, performance and specification, as well as to the specific quality issues of the project. Specifications may become quite detailed, particularly in terms of the performance of, say, a motor vehicle. Containment of expenditure within budget is the basis of the cost aspect of the triangle. If the development costs, for example with a new vehicle design, escalate, then it could mean that the selling price would have to be increased to recover those costs, which could make the new product uncompetitive within the marketplace. With larger projects, with complex financing, cash flow issues sometimes become important in terms of drawing down funds in order to do the work. Timescale is the third factor. Some projects have very well-defined milestones and delivery targets. Others tend to be more fluid, and it may well be a benefit to take longer over the project, ensuring that the costs remain under control and that the latest technology can be used when it becomes available. So before moving on to the next slide, give some thought to the study questions. Firstly, can you describe the trade-offs between quality, cost and time in a project in which you are currently engaged? What are the key quality indicators in the project on which you're currently working? Can you reduce cost and increase quality by increasing the time allocated for the project? Just give some thought to those questions before moving on to the next slide. Slide 3, the organisational context of the project. As well as the internal objectives of the project, a number of organisational issues are relevant. It's invariably the case that organisational politics often come into play. Different departments and functional areas may not be as supportive of the project as they may see it as a threat to their own budgets. It may also be that individuals in different parts of the organisation may have their own agendas with regards to the success or failure of the project. As well as the internal people and resource issues, there will often be some external issues to consider. Commercial pressures, competition, and advances in technology may all have an impact on the project and how it's organised. Green issues, sustainability issues and carbon footprint issues may also impact on the project. Finally, interactions between the major stakeholders, both within the organisation and outside it, may have an impact, positive or negative, on the success or failure of the project. So before moving on, let's give some thought to the study questions that these issues raise. Firstly, to what extent do the politics of your organisation impact on your project working and its team? How can you reduce any negative impact of these political issues? And what external pressures, such as commercial, environmental, and advances in technology do you have to consider as regards to your project? Just give some thought to these questions before moving on to the next slide. Slide 4. Let's go back to the roots of project management. Let's think about where project management started in earnest. It's what we call the PERT approach. Now, as we mentioned in the introduction, our approach to project planning and project management started in the middle of the 20th century with large-scale military projects. The initial approach was called PERT, which stands for Program Evaluation and Review Technique. One of the basic elements of all project management is to identify the tasks and activities which must be undertaken in order for the project to be completed. We then need to assign timescales to these activities and see which ones can be operated in parallel. However, by running several activities in parallel, a problem can occur in terms of resourcing, and this has to be taken into consideration. In simple projects, this can be explored manually. However, with more complex projects, it's usually more effective to use a computer-based project management program, such as Microsoft Project. A key issue with project management in terms of planning is the concept of the critical path. This is the minimum time which will be taken for completion of the project, regardless of resourcing issues. So before moving on to the next slide, just think about how you would answer the following study questions. Imagine you are in charge of an office move. What sort of activities would you have on your project management plan? And can you assign estimates of the required time for each activity? In slide 5, we take a step forward into the processes of scientific project management, project planning, project control, and we introduce the concept of the Gantt chart. Now, one of the simplest ways of creating a project plan is the Gantt chart, which is, in its simplest form, a bar chart showing the activities and their relationships. As an example, imagine you want to build a store at the back of your house. You think a wooden structure would be the best, as there are no planning problems. You would first start off collecting brochures of suitable construction kits, then visit suppliers, compare products, and then make your decision. The concrete base could be constructed once you've made the decision and have the measurements. You would then have to take into account a delivery time, then assemble the tools once you identify the work that needs to be done. The construction phase would be next, followed by painting, and then fitting out the insides with shelves and possibly electrical power. So just think about how you would plan that very straightforward project of building a store using some sort of bar chart. Let's look at the study questions which will move this idea forwards. Firstly, can you estimate the approximate times for each of the activities? What would your bar chart look like listing the activities and their durations? Can you choose which activities would need to be completed before the next one is started? Just see then if you can put together a suitable bar chart for understanding how you would set about planning your project to create the store. Slide 6. We can see in this slide one approach to the creation of a Gantt chart. The first 4 activities of collecting the brochures, visiting the suppliers, constructing the base, and the delivery process are each estimated at around a week in duration. The tools are then assembled during the delivery period so that all is ready to start construction at the end of week 4. 2 weeks are allowed for the construction, which will not be a full-time process, hence the extended period. The painting can be conducted in parallel with the later stages of the construction. However, the fitting out of the interior and the connection of electrical power cannot take place until the construction is complete. It's a simple matter to record progress by splitting each of the activity boxes into an upper and lower section. The upper section could display the estimated time and the lower section the actual time taken. In this way, for a simple project, progress can be evaluated. So, our study questions this time: can you draw the network for this project with this additional information about anticipated times and actual times? And what is the critical path duration in terms of weeks? Slide 7. Using Excel to create a Gantt chart. One of the benefits of working with Microsoft applications is that Gantt charts may be easily constructed using the Excel spreadsheet program. Now, there are many tutorials available on the internet taking step by step the way that you can create a Gantt chart from an Excel spreadsheet. And just 3 links are shown in the slide. office.microsoft.com/etc. create a Gantt chart in Excel and the various numbers is a very, very good example, a very, very good way of doing it. Secondly, www.brighthub.com. That link is also very, very useful, as in fact is the third one, www.projectsmart.co.uk, again creating a Gantt chart. So your study questions and study assignment for this particular slide, using one of the links in the slide and in the bibliography, can you create an Excel spreadsheet based Gantt chart for the construction project shown in slides 5 and 6? And what would you see are the advantages of using Excel compared to a hand-drawn Gantt chart? Slide 8. One of the fundamental issues that we're addressing in this series of sessions is the idea that there's been a shift in thought on project management towards project leadership, because computer software, particularly things like Gantt charts done with Excel and with Microsoft Project, that planning process can largely be taken over by software systems. However, leadership cannot be taken over by software systems. So in slide 8, we start to look again at the whole issue of project leadership and applying core leadership capabilities to project management. In 1997, my colleague Alan Hooper and I created our 7 leadership capabilities of setting direction, setting an example, communicating effectively, bringing out the best in people, creating emotional alignment, and handling the crisis. And we can apply these 7 capabilities to the project leader's role and add 3 highly relevant specific issues. Those issues are self-awareness of how effective you are in terms of dealing with your project team, if you like, the effect you have on your project team, both as a group and on individuals. Secondly, delivering results on time by achieving milestones according to the project plan. And then thirdly, handling uncertainty and ambiguity. Taken together, these 10 project leadership capabilities, combined with accurate planning skills and processes, will ensure that the project work has the greatest chance of success in terms of its completion and the outcomes which result. So, your study questions for this slide: take time to give yourself a mark out of 10 for each of the capabilities shown in the slide. What is your total mark out of 100? Ask 3 members of your project team to rate your performance on each of the 10 items and then compare your results with theirs. What are the capabilities where the ratings differ the most? Slide 9. The practical impact of leadership style. Leadership style is a complex area with many interpretations of what it means in practice. 3 useful approaches are covered in this slide. One of the first approaches to understanding leadership style was the approach the leader takes to communication. This was covered in some depth, albeit in relatively old-fashioned language, in the article by Tannenbaum and Schmidt in the Harvard Business Review in 1973. Some leaders just tell people what to do, and this is termed the autocratic style. Other leaders involve people and take account of their comments, then make the final decision themselves. This is called the democratic or sometimes inclusive style. A third approach to leadership style is for the leader to bury themselves in the group and steer the group covertly from within, without it being obvious that they are the leader in control. And this is sometimes called laissez-faire leadership, although that term is sometimes associated with sloppy leadership perhaps, and abdication on the part of the leader. Now, the second approach to leadership style is that which emerged from the American research on leadership behavior in the 1960s. Two types of leader behavior were identified: task behavior, focusing on achieving objectives and getting the job done, and relationship behavior, focusing on maintaining relationships and working with individuals and their needs. The mix of those two types of behavior, task and relationship, leads you to the leader's style. And thirdly, the approach of John Adair with his functional approach to leadership is a useful way to interpret styles. Does the leader focus on getting the job done, or building a team, or focusing on individuals within the team? The mix of the attention on task, team and individual gives rise to the leader's style. So, study questions for this slide. Would you describe your leadership style in terms of autocratic, or democratic, or laissez-faire? Do you tend to be task-orientated or people-orientated as a project leader and manager? Where is your personal focus? On the project, on achieving the task, developing the team as a unit, or working with and developing individuals within your team? Just give some thought to those questions before moving on to the next slide. Slide 10. Emotionally intelligent project leadership. In this last slide for this session, we're going to address a key issue in modern approaches to leadership, and that is the sustainability of the leader's position. No longer can robber barons relying on bullying people into delivering performance last in our organizations. One of the key players in the emotional intelligence arena is Daniel Goleman, who identified 5 issues in emotional intelligence in general terms and reduced this set to 4 issues in terms of emotionally intelligent leadership. His article, Leadership That Gets Results, in the Harvard Business Review, is an excellent account of the impact of various leadership styles on the climate or atmosphere of the working situation. His set of 5 emotional intelligence factors includes self-awareness, self-management, motivation, understanding others' emotions, and effective interpersonal skills. Now, with the leadership style research conducted with Haymack Burr, the consultants, he looks at the emotional intelligence aspects as 2 clusters: the leader, and the other cluster is the interaction of the leader with the followers. He includes the 5th area of motivation in his original list in both the leader cluster and the follower interaction cluster, making 4 rather than 5 aspects for the basis for emotionally intelligent leadership. Now, the study showed that the most effective leadership style was vision-based, or, as Goleman calls it, authoritative-based leadership, or the authority of a vision. The other 3 effective styles are based on coaching, democratic or inclusive, and affiliative or promoting relationships across functional boundaries. The 2 styles which seem to be counterproductive to long-term operational effectiveness are the coercive style and the pace-setting style. Now, in this latter style, the interpretation is that the leader is always attempting to prove that she or he is somehow better than the followers, and that she or he needs to set the pace of working from the front. So, before closing down this particular session, give some thought to the study questions and then just have a look at some of the items in the bibliography. Our first study question is this: how would you rate yourself in terms of emotional intelligence on Goleman's 5 key areas of self-awareness, self-management, motivation, understanding others' emotions, and interpersonal skills? How would your people rate you in those areas? Are you prepared to ask them? Which of the 6 main styles in the slide do you use the most often, and which style is that which you use the least? So just give some thought to those study questions and then move on to have a look at the bibliography before we finish this session. Now, to finish off this session 3, let's look at some of the references. This is slide 11. The book on leadership by Richard L. Daft is an excellent up-to-date compendium on the way thought on leadership has developed over the decades. Daniel Goleman's article, What Makes a Leader, is an effective link between the issues of emotional intelligence and leadership, and his article on leadership that gets results provides a useful account of the impact of various leadership styles on operational climate or atmosphere within the project team. A much older article by Tannenbaum and Schmidt in the Harvard Business Review in 1973 provides an interesting, although somewhat dated approach to decision-making in terms of the leadership styles of autocratic, democratic and laissez-faire or covert. And then John Adair's book, Effective Leadership, is highly relevant to the project leader. And then just going back to the ideas of project planning, the internet-based example of creating a Gantt chart using an Excel spreadsheet returns very much to the planning aspects of project management and leadership, reminding us that there are these two strands, the planning and the control elements. The internet-based example of creating a Gantt chart using an Excel spreadsheet returns to the idea that project management and leadership has two distinct aspects. One is the planning and control aspect, much of which can be done with computer software. The other one is the human aspect, or the leadership aspect. That's the end of session 3. Look forward to speaking with you in session 4. Thank you.